She waited until the coffee was cool enough to ignore, sat there swiping the rim of her mug like she was sketching a plan on the ceramic. I knew that look. I'd seen it before, usually when she was trying to convince herself of something before saying it out loud. She exhaled like she wanted me to ask what was wrong. I didn't. Then came the line, delivered with the kind of calm cruelty only someone practiced in soft landings can manage. I think we're better off just being friends. Just like that, no build-up, no tears, just a clean incision. 2 years of shared mornings and road trips, of dinners we didn't always finish, and stupid jokes that made her snort laugh, swept aside like a magazine on the coffee table. I nodded, that's all. Didn't flinch. Didn't question it. I watched her study me, waiting for the pushback. Some grovel, a hint of desperation. But all she got was silence and a sip of lukewarm black roast. Inside, after she left, I walked past the hallway mirror without looking. The photo from the Oregon coast was still up, us in hoodies, standing under that crooked pier. I took it off the wall, frame and all, and drove it straight to the recycling center. Didn't even slow down at the drop-off bin. Back home, I deleted her contact, not just the number. I wiped the messages, the shared notes, even the Spotify playlist we'd built on that rainy Saturday when the power went out. Some people mourn with candles and whiskey. I clean house. Here's the thing. When you're a widower, people assume your heart's made of soft wax, like you'll cling to anything warm just to fill the cold. And maybe they're right for a while. But eventually, you stop mistaking a flicker for a flame. Rachel wasn't cruel, not in the usual sense. She just had this talent for emotional bookkeeping, always balancing what she gave with what she thought she should get. Love to her felt like a transactional lease. Renew annually. Terminate early if growth plateaus. I was 58. Not ancient, not dumb. Just tired of being someone's lesson on what they don't want. 2 hours later, my daughter Amanda called to confirm our plans for my birthday. I said we'd do the usual, grill on the deck, maybe that carrot cake from the little place downtown. I didn't mention Rachel, didn't have to. My silence filled in the blanks. And here's where I pause for a second if you've made it this far. More than 90% of you just listen without subscribing, but it's the folks who do subscribe that keep this thing alive. That small gesture, it tells the team we're hitting the mark. So if this story's speaking to you, consider it, back to it. The porch felt different that night. Same boards I built myself 10 years ago after Ellen died, same swing, but quieter somehow. Rachel had left behind a cardigan on the back of the chair, gray, loose knit, probably smelled like her. I threw it in the wash before I could think too hard about it. There were no arguments, no begging, just a vacuum, like a door left ajar in winter. And yet, something about the way she said it, better off, kept repeating in my head like a drip from a leaky faucet. I didn't drink that night. I didn't rehash the relationship or talk to the dog like some sad movie cliche. I just sat on the porch with an old radio, letting the blues hour roll in. Light fading, cicadas picking up the evening shift. What gnawed at me wasn't the ending. Endings I can handle. It was the precision, the timing, like she'd rehearsed it. 2 days later, Amanda noticed the absence before I said anything. No Rachel, no extra place setting. She didn't ask outright, just gave me that daughter look that reads your posture better than your words. We talked about nothing for most of dinner. Then she went inside and found a voicemail on the landline. The one I forgot still worked. Rachel's voice, playful and breathy. "I'll be late, babe. I'll explain when I get there." Timestamp, 2 nights before the breakup. Amanda didn't say a word. Just looked at me with that same quiet confusion I'd been nursing for 48 hours. And something in me clicked. No yelling, no broken glass or dramatic X's, just a growing suspicion. And a man with time on his hands. Amanda pulled up the driveway with 2 paper bags, one from the bakery, one from the wine shop, and that usual smirk she inherited from her mother, my late wife. God rest her razor-sharp soul. I was already out back manning the grill, flipping a couple of ribeyes like everything was perfectly normal. No Rachel, no extra chair, no, she'll be here soon. Amanda caught it right away. "Where's Rachel?" "Busy," I said, a little too quickly. "Work trip, I think." She raised an eyebrow but didn't push, just handed me the wine and said, "Then it's her loss. Cake's still from Fisher's." We went through the motions. Steak, potatoes, carrot cake, the same routine we've had since Amanda was 12. except now she was 28, married, and expecting her first. She asked the polite questions. I gave the safe answers. Not once did I bring up the porch or Rachel's friends speech. It wasn't the kind of thing you throw into birthday conversation next to baked beans. But the thing about daughters, real daughters, not the pretend nurturing kind like Rachel tried to play, is that they know your silence is like sheet music. Amanda noticed the missing photo by the hallway. She noticed the sweater gone from the porch. She even noticed that I started playing jazz again instead of Rachel's god-awful meditative focus playlists. After she left, I cleaned the dishes slow, not out of nostalgia, out of habit. Habit fills the spaces where conversation used to live. And then came the voicemail. Amanda had gone inside to grab her charger. I was out back, covering the grill, when I heard her call, "Dad." I walked in. She was standing by the kitchen phone like she'd seen a ghost. "Your landline's blinking." I forgot I even had the damn thing plugged in. She hit play. Rachel's voice, clear, flirty, a little tipsy. "I'll be late, babe. I'll explain when I get there. Just wait up, okay? I want to see that dumb smile you do when I bring takeout. Love you." Timestamp, 2 nights before the porch conversation, 48 hours before she looked me dead in the eye and said we were better off as friends. Amanda didn't say anything. She just slowly handed me the phone. Her face was tight, unreadable. I nodded. "Thanks, sweetheart. I'll take care of it." She went home not long after that, hugging me twice and looking like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the shape of it. That night, I didn't sleep, not out of heartbreak, but because something in that message snapped the lock off a door I hadn't realized was there. 2 nights before the breakup, which means she was still playing house, still saying the lines, still lying with her voice curled in sugar. I sat down with an old yellow legal pad. I'm not a tech guy. I still pay my bills by mail and use a wall calendar to track the car's oil changes, but I believe in paper. It doesn't delete, it doesn't autocorrect your memory. At the top, I wrote one word: timeline. I listed everything I could remember. Our last dinner, that weekend trip to the coast, the Tuesday she said friends, the voicemail. Gaps started to appear, gaps I hadn't noticed before. Why had she suddenly stopped leaving her laptop open? When did her gym bag start smelling like a man's cologne I didn't wear? Why did she ask to borrow my checkbook for a dog sitter when we didn't own a dog? You don't see the termites until the beam gives out. And I wasn't just dealing with a failed relationship. I was dealing with a pattern. That night I opened my laptop, used mostly for email and weather reports, and searched her name on Facebook, not as a friend, just a search. A couple of tags came up, smiling photos. One in particular caught my eye. Rachel in a red sweater I'd never seen, wrapped in the arm of a man I'd definitely never met. Caption, "Finally, something real." Posted a week after she left. The pain wasn't sharp, it was surgical. Cold, clean, efficient. I stared at the screen and made a quiet decision. No more guessing. No more giving the benefit of the doubt like it's a family heirloom. No more silence masquerading as dignity. If she wanted to end things, fine, that was her right. But whatever this was, the timing, the voicemail, the new man before the old seat was cold, that wasn't heartbreak. That was a game. And I wasn't playing anymore. I didn't recognize the guy at first. Eric, short-cropped beard, smug half-smile, designer shirt that tried too hard. He looked like the kind of man who called himself an empath on first dates and left 1-star Yelp reviews if a waiter didn't laugh at his jokes. Rachel was nestled into him like she'd rehearsed the pose, her head tilted, her hands curled around his arm, her eyes full of that curated affection people post when they're desperate to prove they're doing better. The caption read, "Finally, something real." I scrolled once, took in the second photo, a charcuterie board, candlelight, him holding her hand, her fake lashes catching just enough light. Her nails were painted the same color she used to ask me to pick up. Peony blush, she called it, the kind of detail you don't mean to remember but do anyway. Then I closed the app, logged out, not because I couldn't take it, but because I could, and that unsettled me more. Bitterness is noisy, but detachment is surgical, quiet, precise. Weeks passed. I went on with my life, planted winter rye in the yard, started walking again, made it a habit to wake up before the sunrise and drink coffee in the dark like I used to before Rachel came along, and insisted on slow mornings with incense and French press. Then, one Saturday morning, someone knocked. It was Hank. Used to be in Rachel's friend circle, though I always suspected he was more my friend than hers. He held the toolbox I'd loaned him last spring, rusty hinges, worn handle, my name carved on the bottom like I was worried someone would steal a socket wrench. Figured I'd better get this back before the snow hits, he said, setting it down on the porch rail. Then, after a beat, he added, "Heard Rachel and that new guy, Eric, split. Nasty." I raised an eyebrow. That's it. No comment, no invitation to elaborate, but Hank, bless him, wasn't built for silence. "She left him high and dry, man. Heard she dipped with some of his stuff. Money. Maybe a few valuables. You didn't hear it from me, all right?" I gave a polite nod, said thanks for the return, and went back inside. I didn't slam anything, didn't scream. I didn't drink, though I'll admit I looked at the bottle of scotch on the shelf longer than usual. Instead, I pulled out the same yellow legal pad. At the top of a new page, I wrote Eric. I drew a line down the middle. On one side, what I knew. On the other, what I needed to know. Then I flipped back to the previous pages. My Rachel timeline was already a quilt of questions, half-truths, and strange coincidences. But now a shape was forming. A pattern. Rachel had a rhythm. Get close, entangle lives, leave before the mask slipped, but not before she walked off with pieces of her partner that couldn't be easily replaced. Finances, credit access, even personal property. With me, it had been small things at first. Her casually offering to run errands, asking for my bank card just to grab groceries. One time she forgot to bring it back for 3 days, said it was in her gym bag. When I checked the balance, there was a charge at a high-end salon 2 towns over. I'd swallowed it, told myself love was about trust. Now I was beginning to see what kind of trust she'd been banking on. That evening, I went to the old roll-top desk Ellen used to keep our taxes in, bottom drawer, file marked Miss Key. Inside were old receipts, warranty papers, and a single manila folder marked Rachel, shared expenses. Why did I keep it? Maybe because part of me knew I'd need it one day. Inside were copies of checks I'd written her name on, notes she left asking for a quick $200 or just until Friday. Nothing criminal, nothing dramatic, but together. Started to feel like a preamble. I opened a new page on the pad and titled it The Pattern. Every man who's been played wants to believe it was a one-off, that you were just the unlucky one. But this didn't smell like luck. This smelled like a blueprint. I began to list out questions. Did Eric lend her money? Did she have access to his accounts? Were there other Erics? Then I drew a third column. Names I remember her mentioning. The barista who gave her a discount because he liked her laugh. The co-worker she said was just a little too flirty. The yoga instructor with the BMW. She didn't just date men, she collected them. And maybe, just maybe, she did more than that. I wasn't interested in revenge. Not yet. I was interested in clarity. There's a difference between heartbreak and betrayal. One passes, the other lingers until you've done something about it. So I kept writing. And for the first time in months, my hand didn't shake. The knock came around noon, middle of a Thursday, when most people are at work or pretending to be. I was in the garage sharpening a set of chisels I hadn't touched since Rachel moved in and declared the space too cluttered for creative energy. The irony made me smile as I wiped my hands on a rag and opened the door. She stood there with a calm I recognized instantly. Not polite calm, mission calm. Neat ponytail, dark jeans, a worn-out hoodie that said Oregon State, gray flecked with travel. She had a manila envelope clutched to her chest and a look that said she wasn't here to ask if I had a moment to talk about my car's extended warranty. "Daniel?" she asked. I nodded, leaning a shoulder on the frame. "I'm Mara, Eric's sister." I didn't move, didn't blink, just gave her a slow once-over, the kind you use when you're not sure if someone's here to sue you, sell you, or save you. She glanced back at the street, no car running, no one with a camera. She looked back and said, "I thought you should know what happened." She extended the envelope toward me like it was hot. Rachel didn't just date my brother, she drained him. That word, drained, hit with surgical accuracy. Not cheated, not hurt, not broke up with. Drained, like blood from a vein, like air from lungs. I stepped back. "Come in." We sat in the kitchen, same table Rachel used to decorate with fresh lavender like she was staging a farmhouse blog. The room still smelled faintly of the cinnamon soap she insisted on. Mara set the envelope between us, then folded her hands like she was steadying herself. Eric's in rehab, she said flatly. Third time, but this one's different. He hit bottom hard. Took me a week to find him. I didn't ask how or where. I'd seen the signs, the slouched shoulders, the 1,000-yard stare of someone who's been hollowed out by someone they thought they could trust. Mara continued. She told him he was her safe place, that she'd been traumatized by older men, and he was the first one who made her feel stable. She made him cancel his lease, move in with her, pushed him to co-sign on a car she never drove, said it was for building trust. I opened the envelope. Inside, credit card statements, charges for clothes, flights, electronics, all in his name. A printed chat transcript with her saying things like, "You'd do this if you really loved me," and "Why are you making me feel unsafe again?" That kind of language, emotional blackmail wrapped in therapy speak. And then, at the bottom, a folded note, handwritten. I recognized the pen pressure immediately. Male, hesitant. The kind of letter you write when you think no one will ever read it. It began, "I think I might be broken. I don't know if I'm enough for anyone. Rachel says I have abandonment issues, but I think maybe she's right to leave if I can't support her better." I stopped reading. My stomach didn't flip, my throat didn't close. I felt nothing, but not the numbing kind, the clarifying kind. Like when you step outside after a storm and realize the power's out, but at least the noise is gone. I looked at Mara. She was watching me carefully, like someone measuring a fuse. "She's good at it," she said finally. "The words, the timing, making you feel like you're rescuing her while she's pouring gasoline behind you." I nodded. "She said she was different with you," Mara added. "She told Eric you were just a phase, some nice old guy who needed her, that she stayed longer than she meant to." That tracked. Rachel's charity projects always had expiration dates. "She said you were boring." I smiled at that, not sarcastic, not bitter, a genuine smile, because boring is the insult people throw at men who don't make a show of their power. I didn't rage, I didn't chase, I listened. And in silence you hear everything. I picked up the envelope, tapped it once on the table like it was a deck of cards I planned to deal later. "Thank you," I said. Mara hesitated. "I can stay and—" "No," I cut in, not unkindly. "You've done enough. I'll take it from here." She studied me, trying to read what kind of man I was underneath the blank face, and I let her wonder. After she left, I placed the envelope on the coffee table, poured a drink, one ice cube, no toast. Rachel hadn't made a mistake. She'd followed a system. I just happened to be the one man she miscalculated, because while she was practicing her scripts, I was remembering how to sharpen my tools. I didn't go scorched earth, no dramatic texts, no angry voicemails. I didn't even tell Amanda. Instead, I spent a weekend clearing out the garage, found my old boots, my grandfather's toolbox, and a dusty green spiral notebook from the drawer marked junk that Rachel used to say made me look like a hoarder. Inside the first page, I wrote one name in bold letters, Rachel. Then underneath it, the word predator. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with that notebook yet, but I knew it had to start somewhere. I called Phil the next day, retired state trooper, my neighbor for 12 years before he and his wife moved to Prescott to finally do nothing. Phil never quite learned the art of doing nothing. He was the kind of man who read tax codes for fun and never updated his voicemail because he liked hearing his own voice from 2003. He answered on the third ring. "Danny boy," he said, "you finally bored enough to start fly fishing?" "Not quite," I said. "Got a different kind of catch I'm after." I told him everything, not the heartbreak, the pattern, the timing, the money, Mara, Eric, the way Rachel floated between lives like a ghost with perfect makeup. Phil didn't interrupt once, just said, "You got names?" "I got trails," I replied. "I need someone who can follow them legally enough to sleep at night, but creatively enough not to leave fingerprints." "You're speaking my love language," he said. Phil got to work. I mailed him the envelope Mara left, plus copies of Rachel's last 2 grocery receipts I found in the kitchen drawer before she came back to get her stuff, and conveniently forgot her lavender diffuser and 3 sets of earrings. The receipts weren't just for milk and apples. One had a $300 charge for prepaid Visa gift cards. Another included a purchase from a liquor store in a zip code neither of us lived in or near. Phil called 4 days later. "She's slippery, but not invisible," he said. "You ever heard the name Cal Bishop?" "Nope." "Wire transfer, $3,000. From Rachel to a Cal Bishop, 2 weeks after the breakup." through a money service that doesn't ask questions unless you knock with a badge. I scribbled it into the spiral notebook. Cal Bishop, $3,000, 2 UK's post-breakup. Phil continued. Same week, she bought a plane ticket to Reno, one way, flew out Tuesday morning, back Thursday. You know anyone in Nevada? Only a guy who owes me $50 from 1984. Phil snorted. She's been doing this a while, Dan. I know. But you're not just looking for closure. No, I said, I'm looking for pattern. He paused like he was shifting papers on his end. Then get a corkboard and a lot of thumbtacks. I didn't have a corkboard, but I did have the inside of my garage door, a hammer, some nails, and a quiet kind of fury that sharpened focus like a whetstone. Within a week, the wood panels were covered. Top left, Rachel's photo. Below it, the timeline. From our first date to the voicemail. I drew connecting lines like a detective in a bad crime show. Except this wasn't fiction, this was method. Next came Eric, his bank statements, rehab intake date, the note he wrote to himself. His was the first red thread, then Cal Bishop, a stranger but not for long. Phil found an address tied to a storage unit in Sparks, Nevada, registered under a shell company linked to, you guessed it, Rachel's maiden name. Not her legal one. The one she said she hated, the one she never used. More red thread. Another name emerged. Darren. I remembered her mentioning him once as an old friend who let her crash on his couch when times were rough. A few calls later, Phil found him listed as a co-signer on a loan for a vehicle she never registered. The vehicle was repossessed. Darren's credit? Torched. I found his Facebook profile. No recent photos. A single status update from last year. Some people drain you and still call it love. I added him to the board. 4 men. Same smile in the photos. Same implosion afterward. Same financial hemorrhage. Rachel wasn't just a liar. She was a collector. Of vulnerabilities. Of soft-spoken men with reliable routines and decent credit. But this time, she'd overplayed it. She'd taken too much. Stayed too long. Left too many receipts in drawers she forgot I'd ever opened. I didn't want her in jail. That would be too easy. No, I wanted something far more elegant. I wanted her to sit in a room where everything she'd done was laid out. Not by a judge, by the very men she thought she'd left hollow. I wanted her to watch what a quiet man could build with enough time, enough thread, and enough silence. Because silence isn't weakness. It's preparation. The sound of tires on wet gravel isn't one you forget when you've lived in the same house for 3 decades. It's subtle, but it hits the ears like a prelude. When Rachel's car pulled into my driveway that Tuesday afternoon, silver, still sporting the vanity plate that read Bloom, I was already watching from the kitchen window. She sat in the car for a moment, engine running, windshield wipers ticking like a metronome. Then she stepped out into the rain without an umbrella, a soaked cardigan clinging to her arms, her hair pulled into a knot that was unraveling by the second. She looked smaller than I remembered, but maybe that was just the weight of whatever game she thought she was still playing. I opened the door before she knocked. She jumped a little. The performance had begun. "Can we talk?" she asked, blinking through wet lashes. I nodded. "You're dripping." She followed me in, the same house she once filled with scented candles and playlists full of ocean waves and rain chimes. I handed her a towel, clean but not one of her towels. She noticed. "I made mistakes," she began, eyes shimmering. "Eric was a mess. He lied to me, manipulated me, made me feel unsafe. I wasn't myself." Ah, there it was. The first pivot from guilt to victimhood. Smooth, well-rehearsed, delivered with the exact tempo she once used to explain why her ex couldn't handle her growth. "I miss how you cared about me," she added, voice cracking just enough. "How you made everything feel safe." I nodded again, didn't speak, just listened. She reached for my arm. I let her. Her fingers were cold, trembling just slightly, and she leaned her head lightly against my shoulder like nothing had ever happened. Like the porch conversation, the gift cards, the wire transfer, the Reno trip, all of it had evaporated in the rain. And for now, I let her believe it. You've come this far, so let me pause to say, if you're listening without subscribing, you're not alone. Over 90% do, but it's the subscribers who fuel the fire behind stories like this. That quiet little click keeps the team going. Lets us dive deeper, go longer, aim sharper. So if you're here, if this story's crawling under your skin the way it did under mine, subscribe. Let's keep peeling back the curtain. Rachel stayed for tea. Chamomile. I offered it without asking what she preferred. I'd thrown out her favorite blend months ago. She wrapped her hands around the mug like she needed it to stay upright. I didn't leave because of you, she said after a few minutes of silence. I left because I didn't think I deserved you. That line must have worked wonders on the ones before me, but I was past flattery dressed as humility. I can't explain everything yet, she continued, voice softer now, but I wanted to see you, to feel grounded again. She was choosing her words carefully, like she knew part of me might still want the illusion, like she was banking on the idea that I missed the idea of her enough to look past the facts. I offered her a blanket, lit the fireplace, watched as she curled into the corner of the couch like some reclaimed cat, slowly making its way back home after a long storm. We didn't talk much after that. I let the quiet do the heavy lifting. She filled the space with sighs, occasional glances, and those little fingers of manipulation she thought were invisible. But I wasn't there to feel anything. I was there to watch. She stayed for dinner, nothing fancy. Leftover stew I reheated without ceremony. She offered to clean up. I said, don't worry about it. She smiled like it meant something, like she was being invited back into the fold. Afterwards, she stood at the threshold between the kitchen and the hallway, our hallway once, and said, I could stay, just for tonight, if that's okay. I shrugged. Up to you. And she took that as a yes. She slept in the guest room. I didn't lock my door, didn't hide the valuables. I didn't need to, because what happens next isn't about closure. It's about teaching someone what enough looks like, what silence can build, what dignity can dismantle. She came back thinking the past was buried and forgotten, but I'd been gardening, and some things were about to bloom. Rachel moved through the house like she had never left, as if 2 years of calculated intimacy and one abrupt "we're better off just being friends" could be smoothed over with a tray of blueberry muffins and a playlist full of faux nostalgia. She hummed while cooking, refilled the spice rack, rearranged the living room throw pillows like the ghost of her former self had just hit the reset button. On day 2, she pulled my flannel from the laundry basket and wore it without asking. It still smells like you, she said with a giggle that once would have melted me. I nodded and took note, literally. The green spiral notebook stayed tucked between the couch cushions. Every night after she dozed off on the couch, pretending to be too cozy to move to the guest room, I'd jot down times, details, items shifted. When she used my iPad to check the weather, I turned the screen recorder on, watched later as she navigated not to AccuWeather but to Facebook Messenger, then to Venmo. She was transferring money. Small amounts, always to new usernames that looked like burner profiles, JK9, Lunar Rises, Bishop 1987. I didn't have to guess who the last one was. She cooked chicken piccata on Wednesday and told me I still made her feel safe. I smiled, chewed slowly, watched her eyes for flinches. She was testing for softness, vulnerability, looking for cracks. Thursday morning, she forgot a small velvet box in the bathroom cabinet. Inside were 2 gold bracelets and a tiny envelope with a folded receipt from a jewelry boutique downtown. Date 2 days ago. Purchase name Daniel King. I hadn't been downtown in months. She was setting a trail, staging a narrative. Maybe for someone else, maybe for legal use, maybe just to prop up whatever redemption arc she was preparing to tell the next man. So I staged a few things myself. I moved the bracelets into the medicine cabinet next to the ibuprofen and left it open just enough. Let her think she was sloppy, that I might discover it, confront her, maybe even hand it back with a wounded look in my eyes. She needed me reactive. That's how she controlled the story. But I gave her nothing. Just polite silence, occasional laughter, a quiet nod when she said something vaguely meaningful like, "You always saw the best in me." On Friday, she used my phone to call her friend because her battery died. I was watching from the garage camera. She didn't dial. She texted. Later that night, I retrieved the backup logs. I had a device mirroring app running, logging text to a private folder synced to my computer. There it was. It's working. He's soft. I'll get him back in. Just need to prove I'm still the only one who understands him. She was right. She was the only one who truly understood how to hollow someone out while smiling. But she underestimated one thing. I'd learned. She didn't know about the camera above the fridge. A small black dome with a 160-degree view. She used to tease me for it, said I was paranoid that we didn't live in a heist movie. But I never took it down. The footage showed her scrolling through my bank app, the way she tucked those bracelets into the cabinet, the text message to Bishop 1987, the smile she gave herself in the reflection of the microwave. On Saturday, I clipped the footage, time-stamped, clean, unedited. I attached the clip and a short note to an email titled Update and sent it to Mara. No emojis, no commentary, just, "You were right, she's back and she's working." Mara replied within 10 minutes. "You want me to come?" I typed, "Soon, just wait for the invite." Sunday, Rachel made pancakes, the same ones she used to make the morning after our fights. The passive-aggressive peace offering. She flipped them like we were back to normal, like forgiveness had slid off the griddle and onto the plate. "I love this house," she said. "I forgot how peaceful it is." I handed her a mug of coffee, no sugar, just how she used to take it when she wasn't pretending to be someone else's ideal. "I'm glad you're here," I said, smiling with just the right amount of tiredness. "Feels like old times." Because the thing about illusions is, once you know the trick, they're just clumsy mechanics and visible wires. And I was done pretending not to see the strings. She came downstairs barefoot, hair messy in that performative way she used to say was authentically feminine. Oversized hoodie that I hadn't seen in years, mine technically, slipped off one shoulder like an accident. She smelled faintly of lavender and guilt. I was at the stove already flipping the second batch of pancakes. Bacon crackled behind me, coffee brewed strong, citrusy. The table was set for 4. She paused in the archway, blinking like she'd walked into the wrong scene. "You're up early," she said, voice still warm from sleep. I smiled over my shoulder. "Thought we'd have company today." She furrowed her brow. "Company?" Then came the knock. I didn't move to answer, just flipped a pancake. Rachel turned toward the door, instinctively tensing, and when it opened, unlocked because I left it that way, Mara stepped in, holding a plain black folder under one arm. She wore no makeup, jeans, hair pulled back in that no-nonsense way that always announces, "I'm not here to soothe you." Rachel's lips parted. "Mara." Then the second shadow darkened the doorway. Eric, thinner than the photos. Eyes sunken but sober, the tremor in his left hand barely noticeable, but I saw it. I saw everything now. Rachel took a step back, breath catching like a snag in her throat. "Daniel, what?" I set the spatula down, wiped my hands slowly, walked to the dining table and laid out 3 envelopes. Cream-colored, unassuming. Each had a name written in my handwriting. Rachel, Eric, Mara. She stared at them like they were ticking. "Have a seat," I said. Eric did. Mara did. Rachel stood. "Sit," I said again softly, not as a command, as a fact already decided. She did. I opened the envelope with her name and slid out the contents. Printouts, screenshots of text messages, hers to Bishop 1987, to Luna Rises, to that random Gmail account I tracked back to a fake job posting site she used as cover. Venmo logs, gift card purchases, jewelry receipts, footage stills from the kitchen camera, timestamps matching the day she texted someone. "It's working?" He's soft. Mara opened hers. It held a timeline. When Rachel met Eric. When she moved in, dates of each major bank transaction. The letter Eric wrote to himself, the one Rachel never knew survived. Eric's envelope was thinner, just 2 pages, a comparison, his and mine. Patterns, identical methods, identical language, identical destruction. Rachel's hands twitched on the table. "This isn't what it looks like," she whispered. I looked at her. Not with anger, not with pity, just clinical precision. "You're right," I said. "It's worse." She scanned the pages, eyes flitting for flaws, holes, any escape route. "You hacked me," she said, voice rising now. "You invaded my privacy." I raised an eyebrow. "Privacy? You can't do this," she snapped, glancing between us like we'd formed a tribunal without her consent. "You're twisting things." "Let me stop you," I said, voice still calm. "Before you spiral into that tired script about victimhood, we're not here for your explanation. We're not interested in your version. Mara leaned in. You broke my brother, bled him dry, and made him think it was his fault. Rachel's lower lip trembled. It was good, convincing even. But I'd seen the footage, heard her laughter after her late-night messages, watched her plant evidence piece by piece, like a set designer staging a show she already knew the ending to. Eric looked up from his envelope, voice hoarse. You said I ruined you, that I was the abuser, but I see now. You were rehearsing me for your next part. Rachel stood suddenly, knocking her chair back. You're ganging up on me, she hissed. This is abuse. This is harassment. You're confusing confrontation with consequence, I replied. She stared at me like she didn't recognize my face anymore. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she thought I was still the soft man who made her tea in the mornings and believed every line she spoon-fed him about being misunderstood. But I wasn't. She turned to the door. Mara didn't stop her. Eric didn't move. Neither did I. She paused at the threshold, drenched in silence. You don't understand, she whispered. I did love you. I picked up the folder she left behind. If that's what love looks like, I said, you should never love anyone again. She didn't close the door behind her, just left it swinging wide. But that was fine. We were done pretending it ever locked from the inside. Eric's voice didn't shake when he said it. You used me. He stood just beyond the table, shoulders stiff, the thin folder still clenched in his hand. His jaw was tight, but not from anger. This wasn't rage. This was clarity forged from being wrecked and rebuilt in his own quiet way. Rachel's eyes flicked between us like a trapped animal calculating exits. No, she said, stepping forward, voice cracking in that familiar key. You don't understand. I was scared. I needed help. I thought I could trust you. Her voice always shifted like that, just before the spin, the emotional sleight of hand she'd perfected over years of rehearsals. She always left enough room for pity to slip through. The cracks in her performance were calculated to let the guilt seep in. Eric didn't move, didn't blink. Mara stayed seated, her phone angled just slightly, camera still recording. Not for court, not for blackmail, but for proof. Proof that the monster in the mirror didn't wear horns. She wore mascara and empathy like a shield. Rachel turned to me next. Daniel? She whispered, like my name alone could unwrite everything. I never meant to hurt anyone, she said, pacing now, hands flailing with practiced desperation. You were so kind to me. I didn't know how to let someone love me. There it was, the manifesto of manipulators everywhere. A confession wrapped in self-pity. I looked at her the way you look at a fire that's already turned to ash. You said we were better off as friends, I said, calm as a scalpel. She froze. I stood up. You were right. A breath caught in her throat. I stepped closer, voice lowering. But now, you don't even get that. She blinked, the full weight of those words crashing into her chest like a steel door slamming shut. She opened her mouth to reply, but I didn't wait. I walked to the hall closet, pulled out the suitcase she'd left the first time she just needed space. Still had the same stupid flamingo tag she thought was quirky. I set it down beside the couch. The sound echoed louder than any argument could. Mara stood, Eric followed. They didn't need direction. They knew the script had ended. Rachel stayed on the couch, hands limp in her lap, face a flicker of disbelief and rage, still searching for the next lie that might land. But there were no more lines to read, no more rehearsals. She was alone on the stage now, and the audience had already gone home. At the door, I paused. Goodbye, Rachel, I said. Not cruel, not bitter, just done. She didn't follow us out, didn't cry, didn't slam the door. She just sat there, surrounded by the kind of silence she never learned how to weaponize. The porch looked exactly the same, but it felt like another life had passed through it. Late October wind rustled the trees like a distant warning. The leaves had turned but hadn't yet let go, clinging to their branches the way people cling to stories that no longer serve them. I sat in the same chair she used to claim for herself, always curling her legs underneath like she owned comfort, owned quiet. This time, I stretched mine out. My phone buzzed again on the side table, screen flashing with her name, still in my contacts only because I wanted her words on the record. Please, let's talk. Another message. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Then 30 seconds later, I'm sorry. Just give me a chance to explain. They kept coming. The apologies, the excuses, the little baited lines meant to hook something emotional, something desperate. But I was empty of that kind of hunger now. Not because I'd healed, but because I'd finally admitted there wasn't anything worth fixing. I picked up the phone, opened the thread, and scrolled, slowly. Her words looked like a stranger's now, familiar vocabulary rearranged by desperation. I tapped one, deleted, another, deleted. No satisfaction, no bitterness. Just space. When I looked up, the sky was that dark, soft navy just before night really arrives. One porch light on. A breeze carrying the scent of someone else's fireplace from a block over. And still the silence didn't ache, it rested. I leaned back and closed my eyes, let my breath settle, long and even. The same porch, the same man. But something crucial had shifted. I wasn't waiting anymore. I wasn't listening for a car. I wasn't hoping she'd come explain. I wasn't holding space for her to be better. I was just there. Another buzz, this one longer. "Why don't you care anymore?" she wrote. I stared at the screen for a moment, then typed slowly, deliberately. "Because you buried it and I let it stay buried." Send, no punctuation, no signature, just the truth. I silenced the thread, set the phone down. The wind picked up a little, shaking the porch screen. I pulled the blanket up over my legs, not because I needed comfort, but because it was finally just me again, and I liked the cold. Inside the house waited. Quiet, simple mind, not full, not empty, just whole.